So in the last session, we have discussed about the object-oriented programming principles, and we have discussed the association among the class and an object. We have discussed what exactly a class and what exactly an object, and how these are associated, and what are the various principles that we need to follow upon writing the code with the help of object-oriented programming. Okay, now let's see in detail information of the class and the objects. As of now, we have discussed theoretically what exactly a class, what it contains. Then how can we define a class? How can we define a class? And what is the syntax we need to follow? And what are the various terminology that we have inside that syntax? And how many ways are there to prepare a class? We'll see practically here. Okay, now let's see the concept of classes. That already we have discussed. When coming to the class is nothing but a physical entity or a blueprint or a prototype which contains some set of members inside it. Okay, which contains some set of members inside it. So whatever the variables that we are defining, whatever the features that we are defining as part of application development, the related features we are grouping together. Okay, the related features we are grouping together in the form of a class. So class contains a set of members like the variables, procedures, functions, properties, constructors. All these things we can define inside a class. Then how many number of classes we can define inside an organization? In an organization, we can define n number of classes also. There is no limitations. Okay. Inside your Salesforce organization, we can define n number of classes also. What are the classes that you want? We can define those classes. N number of classes we can define inside an organization. There is no limitations at all. But upon writing that class code, Salesforce is going to be counting each and every number of characters, that the maximum of we can able to write up to 60 lakhs characters code inside the entire organization. There is no limitation for the number of classes. Like, so these many number of classes only we need to write. There is no such kind of limitation. We can write n number of classes also, but every class code will be counting by Salesforce. Every class characters will be counting by Salesforce, but the total number of characters within our organization should be maximum of 60 lakhs, not more than that. That is a limitation has been given by Salesforce. Okay, now. So now here in this case, how can we define a class? What are the various ways available in Salesforce to create our own class? Okay, now let's see practically one by one. Okay, now. So now let's make a note of this class. It is a physical entity. It is a physical entity which combines a set of related members, together into a single entity called as class. It is a physical entity which combines a set of related members together into a single entity called as class. Now, we can have one or more classes inside an organization. We can have one or more classes inside an organization. We can have one or more classes inside an organization. That means these are called as apex classes. Now tell me generally why we are using these classes? To provide what? Business logic. That's it. Now, business logic has to be written in terms of class. Class means business logic. So that here these classes are also called as controller classes. Those classes are also called as controller classes. In the entry point of view, if anybody asks, have you worked on any controllers? Then you can say yes. Controller means class. That's it. Simple concept. Now that means, have you prepared any classes or not? We have prepared the classes. We have written some business logic also inside that classes. Okay. Now, in this case here, now make a note here. By using class, we can implement the required business logic. Required business logic to be get invoked, okay, to be get invoked or to be get referenced, in the organization. To be get referenced in the organization. That means whenever you want, wherever you want, we can able to access that business logic. In order to perform that operation, whatever the statements are required, whatever the business logic is required, we can write that business logic inside the class, and that class you can use wherever you want. In sales application also we can use. In service application you can use. In your custom application also you can use. In the entire organization, wherever you want we can use. Sometimes if this class is required to be accessed from the outside of the organization also, we can use it. At the time of integration, at the time of implementing some web services, at the time of implementing some APIs, which can be exposed into the outside the world, at that time, these business logic we can expose to the outside the world also, so that other systems or the other applications can consume these services and they can able to have the interaction with our Salesforce system as well. So that with the help of these classes, we can able to write the business logic, which can be accessible within the organization, which can be accessible from outside of the organization also with the help of integration features. During the integration also, we are writing same classes, nothing different. But there we are using some different business logic we are writing. Okay. Now, in this case here, what are the business logic that you are written? That business logic we can able to reference wherever you want inside your organization. And in some cases, we can able to expose this business logic to outside also, to have that integration here. Okay. Now, so now here in this case here, now, for example, now by using these classes, we are implementing the business logic. Now, so whenever I am going to be writing some code inside the class, then where this class code will get resides? Where my Apex classes information will get resides? In my local system? No. Then where it will store? Inside that server. Where exactly in the server? Then where? Where it will store your Apex class code? Now tell me. Where it will store? Metadata repository. Whatever the classes that you have written, all the compiled class code will be storing inside the metadata repository. Along with that, one copy of that class code will be storing inside an object. What is that object name? Apex class object. That's it. All the lead records are storing inside the lead object. Case records in case object. User records in user object. Contact records in contact object. Like the similar way, all the Apex classes information will be storing inside Apex class object. Okay. So that Apex class is a standard object which will be holding all the Apex classes which you have prepared. Whatever the Apex classes that you have written as part of your application development, all those Apex classes information will be storing inside the metadata repository. Along with that, one copy of the code will be storing inside an object called as Apex class object. Now, in this case, in that Apex class object, it is storing that information in the form of a file. Then what is that file extension here? Then all the Apex classes will be storing with the extension what? .apxc. Apxc means what? Apex class. C means class. Okay. Now, so that whatever the Apex classes that you have prepared, all the Apex classes information will be storing inside the respective files, which will be having the extension .apxc. Okay. Now make a note of this one here. Now, let us come to this side. Now, so now all the Apex classes information will get resides inside the Apex class object. Apex class object. Each Apex class code will get resides inside a file with the extension .apxc. With the extension .apxc. All the Apex classes will be storing inside the respective files with the extension .apxc. Now, classes are used to implement the complex business logics and the complex transactional flows. Classes are used to implement the complex business logics and the complex transactional flows. These are also referred as controller classes. These are also referred as controller classes. So a class can have one or more variables, properties, procedures, functions, and constructors inside it. A class can have one or more variables, properties, procedures, functions, and constructors inside it. These are the various members that we can able to group inside that class. The class contains the combination of all these things together. That's what I told you. Encapsulation can be achieved with the help of classes and interfaces. Encapsulation means what? We are grouping some set of related things together. So here also, the related variables and the functions and the properties, constructors, everything I'm grouping together under a single unit that is called as a class. Okay? So a class can have all these members inside this. Now each and every variable and the property, procedure, function, whatever we have discussed, that each and everything is called as a member of the class. Like inside a family, so many people are living together. So these people are called as family members. Like the similar way inside a class, we are having so many the variables, properties, constructors, all these things are available which are called as the class members. These are all are the members of the class. Now, in this case, how can we define a class inside our Salesforce instance? What is the syntax that we need to follow here? Okay, now, the syntax. Upon defining the class, we have to follow this syntax. We have to specify the access specifier. Access specifier. Okay, access specifier. And then give the keyword class and the class name. And then here we can able to define the members here. Write the business logic and define the required members. Define the required members and then write the business logic inside this. So now we can specify the access specifier, class, and the class name. So upon defining the class, we have to specify the access specifier. And then we have to use the keyword class because I'm indicating that this is the class which I'm going to define. Then what is the name of that class? This is a name. So upon defining this class, please start that class name with the uppercase letter. Okay, please start the class name with an uppercase letter. Basically, it's not a rule, but it's a best practice that we need to follow. Okay, it's a best practice we need to follow inside your real-time implementation. And the class name should be always a single word. We should not give any spaces inside the class names. Class name should be always a single word. If you want to make the class name as two words, then whatever the space that you have given, replace that space with a character called as underscore. Okay? In the class names, you can use the special character that is underscore. Only underscore will be getting acceptable. Remaining special characters like as dot, comma, hyphen, hash, dollar, it won't accept the remaining special characters. Only the underscore character will be getting acceptable, okay, inside that class name. Okay, next. Upon defining the class, always the class name should be unique. Okay, always the class names should be unique. That means we can't define two classes with the same name. Okay, we can't define two classes with the same name. When you try to create the second class with the same name as the previous one, Salesforce is giving that error message to you. It won't allow you to create two classes with the same name because every class should be having a unique name. Why? Because if the Salesforce is allowing us to create two classes with the same name, whenever I'm accessing the class members, then which class members it will be accessing? The first class one or the second class members? It will be an ambiguity. It will be a confusion. So at that time, to avoid this kind of ambiguity, Salesforce has indicated a specific rule that every class should have a unique name. We can't create the multiple classes with the same name. Okay? Inside the class, whatever the business logic that you want, you can write, no problem. Okay? If you want to write the same business logic, you can write it, no problem. But the class name should be always unique. We can't create two classes with the same name. Okay? Now make a note of this one here. Naming conventions. Upon creating the class, we have to follow these naming conventions. Now, the first one. As a best practice, always class name should be starts with an uppercase letter. Class name should be always starts with an uppercase letter. As a best practice, always class name should be starts with an uppercase letter. Class name should be always a single word. Class name should be always a single word. It should not have any spaces. We can use underscore character in the class name. We can use underscore character in the class name. Next. Each class should have a unique name. Each class name should have a unique name. That is, we can't create two classes with the same name. We can't create two classes with the same name. Okay? These are some naming conventions we need to follow. These are the best practices, are the coding standards we need to follow upon writing the code by using Apex programming. So now here in this case, whenever I'm going to be defining a class, Here I'm having a syntax that we need to specify the access specifier. We have to indicate the name as class, nothing but keyword class, and then specify the class name. With what name you want to create a class, you can specify, and then you will be having the starting of the braces, ending of the braces. That means in that class, you will be having so many members. To group all those members, I'm using that a block, which is called as a block over here, starting to ending block over here. In this block, we can able to define what are the members that you want. What are the business logic that you want, we can write that business logic in between these braces here. Okay, so that this is called as what are the things that you are defining in between this block. These are called as the class members. These are all the class members. You can write so many variables, properties, functions, constructors, everything we can define inside that. We can write the business logic also. Okay, now in this case, we can raise the question, sir, the class keyword is okay, then the class name we can give no problem. Then what is this access specified here? What exactly an access specified? What it indicates basically, what type of access specifiers available in your Apex programming language, and what each access specifier indicates. Okay, now let's see practically. Okay, now let's go to that access specifiers. Okay, access specifier. Then what exactly an access specifier indicates over here? Okay, okay, what exactly an access specifier indicates? What is the use? Okay, now let's see practically in this case. Okay, now, madam, come to this side. Now, so now in this case here, for example, come to a general scenario. Assume that I'm having an object, an account object here. I have an account object. So now we are having so many users are available for my organization. Now, whenever a user is creating a record inside this account object, to whom the record has to be get visible, then how can we decide? How can we specify? Whenever I'm creating a record inside that object, okay, who are all the people can see my record? How can we decide? OWD, that's it, simple. That means what? OWD we are using. That means we are indicating the OWD. What the OWD indicates? The OWD is indicating scope of that particular record. Whenever the user is creating a record inside that object, now the OWD is indicating to who are all the people this record can be get visible. Who are all the people can access this record that will be indicated by the OWD. That means there is a scope. It is indicating up to these users only this record will be getting visible. Like as if it is a private OWD, it is indicating the record should be visible only to the owner of the record, is a manager. If the OWD is public read only, then this record is a public record. Everybody can see that record over here. But at that time, owner of the record and his manager will be having full control. Other people will be having read only access. If it is a public read write, it is giving a different access level. Like whenever I'm creating a record inside that object, it will make that record as public. Everybody can see my record. Everybody can modify my record. But other people can't share, other people can't remove. Only myself, that means owner of the record, and the manager of that owner will be having the full permission of that. Other people just they can see your record, they can modify your record, but they can't share, they can't delete the record from that object here. It is indicating the scope. Like the similar way, whenever I'm going to be creating this particular class, or whenever I'm defining the member inside this class, then up to what level this class and its members can be accessible. We can define the scope over here. That's what, when coming to the object-oriented programming, I have given the 2 points as part of procedure-oriented. Data will be moving around the application. Whenever I'm defining a variable inside that particular file, that variable can be accessible in the entire application wherever you want. But sometimes, whenever I'm defining a variable, that variable is having very sensitive information, very confidential information is there. Now I want to restrict that variable here. That variable can be accessible within the class only, not from outside of the class. Sometimes I want to make that member can be accessible within my organization only, not from outside of the organization. Sometimes I want to make that member can be accessible outside of my organization also by using a third-party systems in order to have the integration. At that time, how can we define the scope? For that one, in order to indicate that scope, in order to indicate that level of access, we are using the access specifier. That means, as part of object-oriented programming language, it is introducing that access specifier, which defines the scope of that member and the class also. These access specifiers can be applicable for the class level as well as for the member level also. Like previously, when we discussed about that, the basic programming fundamentals, during that variable declaration also, whenever we are defining the variables also here, okay, whenever we are defining the variables also, there also we have indicated that. Let me open. Now, so now whenever we have discussed about that fundamental concept during the data types, we have discussed that. Upon defining a variable, okay, we have to indicate. Upon defining the variable itself, I have given the syntax to you that while defining the variable, we have to specify the access specifier. That means up to what level this variable can be accessible, and then you can specify what type of data the variable can hold, what is the name of that variable, and what value you are going to store inside that. So now, this access specifier is not only applicable on the class level, this can be applicable on each and every member level also. Okay? For every class, for every member of the class, we can define the separate access specifier. Okay? Now, in this case here, access specifiers are not only applicable on the class level, these can be applicable on the variable level also, that means member level also. For every variable, we can define the access specifier. For every procedure, for every function, for every constructor, for every property, we can define that access specifier here. So that access specifier can be applicable for all the levels. For the class level, variable level, member level, property level, constructor level, everywhere we can define. That possibility is available to you. So now in this case, when coming to the access specifier defines the level of access or scope of that particular class or its member can be accessible within your organization or outside of your organization. Up to what level this class or its members can be accessible, that will be defined by the access specifier. Now, in this case, when coming to the Apex programming, we have 4 access specifiers are available. In Apex programming, we have 4 access specifiers are available. First one is private. Second one is public. Third one is protected. Fourth one is global. These are the 4 access specifiers are available. The first 3 access specifiers are common. Private, public, protected. These 3 are common for every object-oriented programming language, since that the Smalltalk also. From the beginning of that object-oriented programming language, because in Smalltalk also we are having these 3. In C++ also we are having the same 3. In Java also, in .NET also we are having the same 3. But when coming to the 4th one, this is different from programming language to programming language. When you go to the C#, there you will be having that first 3 are common, and then they will be having the internal. There is an access specifier called as internal and protected internal. 2 more additional is available. But inside your Apex programming, we are having only one, that is global. Okay? The first 3 is common, and additionally we are having one more access specifier, global access specifier. Then what exactly each access specifier indicates, now let's see practically in this case. Okay? Now make a note of these access specifiers. Upon defining the class or its members, we need to specify the access specifier. We need to specify the access specifier which defines the scope, which defines the scope of the member, scope of the class or its members. That is, access specifier indicates till what level we can access the class and its members. Access specifier indicates till what level we can access the class and its members. Now, Apex provides the below 4 access specifiers. Apex provides the below 4 access specifiers. The first one is private, second one is public, third one is protected, fourth one is global. These are the 4 access specifiers are available inside your Apex programming. Now we'll see each and every access specifier one by one. Done? Now. So now let's see each and every access specifier one by one. The first one, private access specifier. Then what do you mean by the private access specifier over here? Now, for example, come to a general scenario. Assume that I'm having a class. For example, this is my class. My class name is some product details class. My class name is product details class. This is a class. My class name is product details class. In this product details class, I am going to be defining some members to store the product related information. Like as some integer, product code. Okay, product code. Whenever I'm going to be defining this member, if I'm making this member as some private, okay, if I'm making this member as private, what will happen in this case here? Upon defining the member, if I'm making that member with the access specified private, because upon defining the member, we can able to specify here. Access specified data type variable name. It's the same thing I did. Access specified data type variable name I have indicated. So now in this case, if I'm defining this private member, in this case what will happen? Then at that time, this particular product code member can be accessible within this class only. That means within the boundary of this class only. Outside of this class, we can't access. Like for example, along with this class, I'm having one more class also available inside my organization. I'm having one more class. I'm having another class with the name customer details. Customer details class. So now in this case, when you try to access this member here, okay, when you try to access this member from this class to this class, it won't allow because this member is private member. This member can be accessible. This member is a private property of this particular class. So within this class only we can able to access because there is a security boundaries available. So the private members can be accessible within the class only, not from outside of the class. In my organization, you may be having n number of classes may be available inside your organization. But in this case, in the other classes, we can't access this member. This class is restricted completely. Now this class, this member can be accessible within this class only. From the starting of the class to till the end of the class only, we can access here. From outside of this class, we can't access this member. So that in order to make some data, Like for example, whenever I'm going to storing some details upon building the application, like as I want to store like as some credit card number, I want to store the PIN number, user IDs, passwords. Those are very, very sensitive, very, very confidential information, so that I don't want to make it accessible from the other places inside an application. That can be accessible within that class only. For that one, I'm restricting that member that can be accessible within the class itself. From the outside, you can't access it because it is having some sensitive information, some confidential information is there, which I don't want to expose to the other places. So that here, what are the members which you would like to use to store the confidential information or the sensitive information, define those members with that private access specifier. So private members can be accessible within the class only, not from outside. Okay. In the other classes, we can't access this private members of the class. Okay. Clear? Now. So now here in this case, this the private access specifier can be applicable. Okay, the private access specifier can be applicable for the class members, along with that for the test classes. Okay, for the test classes. Because during the deployments concept at the end of the development, we'll see what exactly the test classes. Test classes are used to prepare some automated scripts to do the unit testing. In order to do the unit testing of your application, we are preparing some automated test scripts. Those are called as test classes to maintain the quality of your code. Okay. So now how much quality that you are maintaining inside your code here? Because if I'm not maintaining the quality of the code, whenever I'm going to be deploying that code into the production server, upon executing that code, so if it is going to be giving some issue because of that, if the server has been hanged, if the server has been affected, then at that time, other customers will be getting affected over there. For that one here, we have to maintain the quality of the code. To do that, to verify how much quality that you are maintaining inside your code, we are writing some automated scripts which are called as test classes. Now, those test classes we can able to prepare with the help of this private access specifier. But the normal class cannot be a private class. Okay, a normal class cannot be a private class. We'll see practically that concept also. Okay, now make a note over here. Now, so now private members can be accessible up to what level? Within the class level only, not from outside of the class here. Okay, now the private members can be accessible within the class only. From the outside of the class, we can't access the private members. From the outside of the class, we can't access the private members. Now, I'm giving the note point here. Private access specifier can be applicable for the class members and for the test class. For the test classes. Private access specifier can be applicable for the class members and for the test classes. Clear? Now, for example, come to a most important point here. So now sometimes, whenever I'm going to be defining the member inside the class, if I did not specify any access specifier, what will happen? What is the default one? Now, public. It's a class, not structure. Structure will be making it as public. Class will be making it as private. Okay. Whenever we are defining any member inside the class, upon defining the member, if you did not specify any access specifier, then by default, the class will be treating this member as a private member. Okay. Okay, the class will be treating it as private member by default so that this member cannot be accessible. If you want, specify what access specifier that you want here. If you want to expose to the other classes, then indicate that here. It is giving very basic level. Very basic level means what? Private. It won't allow you to access outside. Okay. Now, in this case, upon defining the members, if you did not specify any access specifier, by default, Salesforce is considering that member as a private member by default within the class. Okay. Now, so the default access specifier for every member is private. Okay. Now, make a note here. If the user did not specify any access specifier for a class member, then Apex will treat the member as private by default. Apex will treat the member as private by default. Points are very, very important. Next, the second one, the public access specifier. Then what do you mean by public here? You know that. This can be accessible from within the class and from outside of the class also. Outside of the class means what, up to what level? For example, here I am having my organization. So this is my organization. And then here I am having another organization also here. Now, so this is the organization 1 and this is the organization 2. Up to what level we can access this one? Now, organization 1 and this is the organization 2. Now, till what we can access over here? Within that organization only. From the outside of the organization, can we able to access that? No, we can't access it here. Okay. Now, in this case, whenever we are going to be defining a member, okay, as public, the public member can be accessible. Suppose, for example, I'm defining this member as public. Whenever I'm defining the member as public, now this public member can be accessible within this class and then from outside of the class also. Till what level? Till this particular organization only here. We can access this member from the class 1, that means the product details class, and the customer details class also, in other classes also within this organization. But from outside of the organization, we can't access it here. Okay, within the organization, we can able to access. Okay, now make a note over here. Public members of the class can be accessible within the class and from outside of the class also. Outside of the class also in the entire organization. In the entire organization. In the entire organization. This is the functionality of public. Holding in the sense? Subsidiary holding in the sense? Parent company child. Then also it won't accessible. Even though, okay, both will be some subsidiaries. At that time, this will be a separate organization. This is a separate organization. We can't access it from outside. Whenever if you want to access, both maybe belongs to, both the organizations are belongs to the same branch also, nothing but a phrase, same business also, it cannot be accessible. If you want, make the integration. Only the way is integration. Okay? Through integration only we can able to access one class member from another organization here. Okay? Now, the third one. The third one is protected. What do you mean by protected basically here? Basically, this protected access specifier has been introduced, okay, because of inheritance feature. Okay, because of inheritance feature, they have introduced the protected access specifier. Like for example, assume that I'm having two classes. So this is the class 1 and this is the class 2. This is the second class. So these are the two classes that we have inside my organization. Now can you map the association between the classes? Yes. With the help of inheritance, yesterday we have discussed. One class features we can able to access into another class also. Okay, now. So now for example here, I'm having one more class also inside this. I'm having another class. So now my class name is loan details. This is the third class. Now in this case, now the class 1, okay, now the class 1, that means the product details class has been inherited into the customer details class. It has been inherited, acquired. Because of inheritance, I am going to be inheriting this class, the product details into the class customer details. That means this customer is going to be purchasing these products over here. Okay, now we have inherited. So now this is the inheritance, for example. Inherited. So in this case, tell me which one is parent class, which one is child class now? Product details is parent, right. Now the customer details is what? Child. Okay. Now. So this is the child class. Now in this case, I'm defining the member, okay, inside my product details class, I've defined a member integer product code, which is a public member. Now tell me up to what level we can access it now. Now, this variable can be accessible within this class and within this class and then within this class also. Because it is a public member, within the entire organization, wherever you want, we can able to access it. But now, I want to define a variable here. Okay, I want to define a variable. I'm defining a variable over here. Decimal unit price. I want to define a member. This member can be accessible within this class and then in the child class also. Not from the other independent class over here. How can we restrict? Then, what we can do? Do I need to move this class to outside of the organization? No, I can't do that. I want this class as it is here. But whenever I'm defining this member can be accessible within this class along with its child class also here. But it should not be accessible from the other independent because this class is not at all having any relation with my product details class here. Okay. In this case, I want to make this member can be accessible within the child classes also. For that one, we have to define this member as protected. Okay. We have to define this member as protected member. Now, whenever I'm going to be defining the member as protected, so the protected members can be accessible within the class and from all the associated child classes also. But this cannot be accessible from the other independent classes, whatever we have inside the organization. For that reason, they have introduced that the protected access specifier, which can be applicable during the feature of inheritance. I want to make this member can be accessible in the parent class along with the child class also, not from the other independent classes over here. Okay? Clear? Now. So you can raise a question. Sir, why you are giving protected? Why can't we give like as public? If I'm giving public, this can be accessible from independent class also. But I don't want to allow. I want accessible within this class along with the child classes also. Not from the other independent classes. At that time, we can make this member as protected. Okay? Now. Now, in this case, if he is having the association with this one, okay, if he is having the association with this one, If he is having the association with this one, now these members can be accessible in this place. This member can be accessible from this place also here. Okay? Now, that means these are the child classes here. We can able to access. Now make a note over here. When the members has been defined as protected, then we can access the members. Within the class and from all the derived classes. Derived classes means the child classes. But protected members can't be accessible from the other independent classes. Other independent classes inside the organization. But the protected members can't be accessible from the other independent classes within the organization. Next, the fourth one, global. I think you know that. What do you mean by the global? Outside of the organization also. Now, at what time we can go with these global members? Integration. Whenever we are going to be integrating your Salesforce application with any third-party systems, at that time we can go with this global. Like, whenever you are going to be executing some business logic from outside of the organizations, like the batch programming, schedule programming, your web services for the integration, APIs, all these things we have to define with global members here. Okay? Now, whenever I'm defining the class or a member as global, then at that time, global members can be accessible within the organization as well as from outside of the organization also. Okay? Now, global members can be accessible within the organization and from the outside of the organization also. Now, make a note here. All the batch classes, schedule classes, web services, APIs should be defined with the global access specifier. Should be defined with the global access specifier. Now, so whenever I'm creating a normal class should be either public or global. It should not be private, it should not be protected over here. Okay? Now, normal class means what? Business logic class. Business logic class should be always defined with either public or global. We can't make it as a private. Private class means that is a test class only, we can make it as private. These are the 4 access specifiers are available as part of your Apex program. Now, in the interview point of view, it is a common question. What is the difference between public and global? Then what do you mean by public? What do you mean by global? Public members can be accessible within the organization. Global members can be accessible outside of the organization also. Okay. Now it is defining the scope. Okay. Now. So now here in this case here, So this is the way we are going to be using this access specifiers. Now let's see how many ways are there to create this class. Upon defining the classes, whatever the things are required, everything we have discussed. You know how to define the variables. You know how to define the class, the syntax. You know what kind of access specifiers are available, everything you know that. Now it's a time to start defining the classes. Then how can we define a class and how many ways are there? Now let's see practically in this case. Ways to create an Apex class. How many ways are there to create an Apex class here? Whenever we are going to be creating an Apex class inside your organization, we have some multiple ways are available. The first one is by using standard navigation. The first way is by using standard navigation. Second way, developer console, right? By using developer console, the third one. And the third one, by using Eclipse IDE or Visual Studio, the code editor. And the fourth one, by using URL format. By using URL format. By using URL format. These are the 4 ways are available in order to create your own controller classes inside your Salesforce instance. Any one of the way you can use. Now tell me which way you will prefer to go. Developer console. Because what is the purpose of using developer console? You will be having IntelliSense feature is available. Auto compile option is available inside that. Already you know that concept here. Initially we have discussed during that Apex programming concept over there. Like we have discussed how many ways are there to write your Apex programming code, and then how can we go with the standard navigation, and what is the observation here, and then the drawbacks of standard navigation. Developer console also we have discussed, and how can we write the code, and then what are the benefits are available we have discussed, and then we have discussed about that Eclipse IDE. That means that is the next concepts over here. Okay, now. So how to write the code inside the execute anonymous window, how to execute, how to see the results, everything you are aware of that here. Upon executing that, we are having the 9 ways that already we have discussed about these concepts over here. Okay, now. So now here in this case here, I would like to go with that, the developer console, in order to define my own Apex class over here. Then how to define the class? Now let's see. Okay, now. So let me take a small use case. So now I want to create a small Apex class. Okay, I want to create a small Apex class in order to manage, the customer details. In order to manage the customer details, I would like to define an Apex class. Now tell me generally, for a customer, what kind of details we can able to capture? For a customer, what kind of details we can have? Customer ID, customer name, and then his address, his contact number, his email ID, and the customer date of birth, his balance value. Okay, if there is any balances, what is the balance amount that he have, whether the customer is active or not, customer's date of birth, joining date, relieving date, like that we are going to storing this kind of information. Now, in this case, how can we define a class to hold all these details of the customer? In this case here, to define that here, I'm defining a class. Okay, inside my organization, I would like to create a class here by using the developer console. Now, so now let me go to the developer console here. Now, I want to create a class. Then how can we go to the developer console now? Go to your name on the top right corner, click on developer console. So now the developer console editor has been opened successfully to you. Now I want to create an Apex class. Now tell me how can we create an Apex class? Go to the file menu, new menu item, you will be having sub menu items are there. Now here we are having the sub menu. Here I am selecting that option called as Apex class. Click on Apex class. I am giving the name of that Apex class, like as I am indicating the name as customer details. Okay, customers details. I am indicating the class name as customer details, but don't give the space inside that class name. Give that like a single word itself. Class name should be always single word, and then always as a best practice, please try to start the class name with a uppercase letter. Don't use the lowercase letter. Variables you can use that lowercase letter. Okay, class names you can use as uppercase letter, so that just by looking into that name itself we can understand, is it a variable, is it a class also, we can understand very easily. Okay, now I'm creating the class with the name customer details. So now this here the class has been getting created. Now tell me in which file this particular class code will be getting resides here. What is that file name? Customer details. It is indicating that. So now whenever I'm going to be creating this particular class, automatically with the class name it is creating a file. The file is having the extension what? .apxc. Okay, in this file your class code will be getting resides. Now, whenever I'm saving this code by using the Control S, automatically the class code will be sending to the Force.com platform. Force.com platform is going to be compiling that class code. Once the class code has been compiled successfully, it will be storing inside the metadata repository. Along with that, one copy of the code will be storing inside an object called as Apex class object by default over here. Okay, you know that entire internal concept already we have discussed. Okay. So now here in this case, I am defining the class. Now tell me here, this is the class is available. Now have we specified public class, all these things? No. Salesforce has given that predefined format for me by default here. Now inside this class, do we have any members? No, we don't have any members. Now in order to manage the customer details, I would like to define some members. Now tell me how to define the members one by one. We want to store what details of the customers? Customer code. Customer code is of type what? String or integer? Can you go with integer? Yes. Now tell me. Now give me the complete information. Access specifier, data type and the variable name, everything. Now, I'm indicating like as public. Public, integer, customer code. Now, along with that I want to store the customer age also. For that one I'm using age variable. Can I define multiple variables in a single line? Yes, we can define. Now, the next one. Public, string, customer name. Any more details you would like to store related to the customer? Phone number. So now the phone number or the contact number here. Contact number, address and the email ID. Okay, these are the 4 details. Next, I want to store the date of birthday date of the customer. His joining date, his relieving date, everything. Public, date, I'm indicating the birthday date, joining date, relieving date here. Relieving date. Now, I'm indicating that here. Next. Now after that, I want to store the customer's balance value. Balance is what? Money. Money in the sense currency. Currency referencing which data type? Decimal, right. Public, decimal, balance amount. And next, I want to know whether the customer is in active status or not. Then what we can do? Boolean. Customer, that means the Boolean now is active. Okay, whether the customer is in active status or not. So that here, depends upon your requirement, we can able to define the class and then we can define the required members inside this. Upon defining the members, we can specify access specifier, okay, for each and every member also. Now, here I will be having a small question. For example, I'm indicating this is active member as private. Then, what will happen? This member can be accessible from outside of the class or not. Class is public. Class has been defined as public. Class has been defined as public. Even though the class is a public, other members can be accessible, but this member cannot be accessible from outside. Okay, even though the class is public, don't think sir class is public so everything is public. Not like that. For every member we can define a different access specifier over here. That access specifier will be getting applicable over here. Even though the class can be accessible from other places, but at that place, this member cannot be accessible. This member can be accessible within the class only, not from the outside of the class. Okay? So that here, upon defining the variables, we can able to indicate depends upon that level of access. Once the class code has been done, click on Control S. Because we don't have any save button, so that we have to use a shortcut mechanism that is called as Control S to save the class code. Okay? Clear? Now, so now this class code has been stored where inside the metadata repository. Along with that, this class code has been stored inside. Okay, this class code has been stored inside an object called as Apex class object. Then what is the guarantee to me that my class has been stored inside that object? Do we have any chance to query that information? Yes, we can query that. Now, how can we query from that object here? Now, let me show you. Go to the query editor. Now, select that class here. ID of the class, name of the class, from what is that object name? Apex class object. That's it. We can able to specify the query. Select ID of that class, name of the class, from Apex class. Now click on execute button at the bottom left corner. Now it is executing that there is a class is available which is having the ID. The ID has been generated by Salesforce. Now this is the class name we have. But in this class, what code that I have written I want to know. For that one here, I would like to use a column called as body column. So now body is a column which will be holding that actual class code. Whatever the class code that you have written, this entire code will be storing inside that body column of your Apex class object here. Now let's execute this code. Now we can able to get the complete information here. Now this is the class code, nothing but the ID generated by Salesforce. And this is the name of your Apex class, and this is the actual code which I have written. Now just double click on this, Control A, and then use Control C, we can able to place wherever you want. This is the class code, whatever we have written over here. Now this is the customer details class. Inside that class, we have written all this information. Now it is giving like as a single paragraph. Suppose if you want to make it as an actual format, then we can able to use that some cosmetic tools. Okay, we are having some cosmetic tools here. So now in this case, to make our face looking like as attractive, we are using so many cosmetics. Okay, the beauty related tools. Like the similar way for your Apex class also, we are having some beauty related tools are there. So now for that one, we are using a tool called as Code Beautify. Okay, we are having that Code Beautify. So now we are having the Code Beautify tools are available here. By using this Code Beautify tool, we can able to arrange that entire paragraph of code into the actual format here. Now we are having so many formats are there. In which format you would like to convert? Excel to HTML, XML viewer, XML to JSON, okay, CS validator, Java related, C# related, Apex related, everything will be available, C++ related, all these things will be available to you. So depends upon your requirement, we can able to, okay, arrange that code into the respective format over here. That possibility is available to you. With the help of this Code Beautify tools, we can able to use that here. Okay, no need to split that code into that multiple lines manually by our own. We can able to use the help of these kind of tools itself. Okay, that possibility is available to you. Now, so in this case, we can able to use the tools also to arrange that the code into that meaningful, understandable format. Okay, now, so now this is the class code which we have prepared right now here. Okay, now make a note of this one. Define an Apex class to manage the customer details. Now write down this class code. Next one. Done? Now, next. Write one more class code here. Define an Apex class. Define an Apex class to manage the product details. Define an Apex class to manage the product details. I want to store the product details here. For every product, what kind of details will be available generally? Product code will be there. Product name is available. Manufacturer is there. And then we are having an expiry date, manufacturing date, unit price of that, whether the product is available in stock or not. These are the details are available. Now, let's start writing the class code. Now, so I'm defining a class with the name product details. I'm defining the members inside this. Public integer, product code, and the public string, product name, manufacturer, and the address, and the date. We are having the manufacturing date and the expiry date and the decimal, the unit price, and the boolean is in stock. Okay, is in stock. Like that, here I am going to be defining the details. I am defining the members. We are analyzing the product, and then for this product, what are the various of features are available, everything we are going to be collecting this information. And then to store that information, we are defining the members over here. Like as a product code, product name, manufacturer, address, expiry date, manufacturing date, unit price, is in stock, all this information we can able to store. Now, clear? Now, the next one. Write one more use case. Define an Apex class to manage the project details. For example, we got a project here from a specific client. Now, regarding that project, what kind of details we can have? Project code is available. Next, title is available for the project. And then in that project, how many members are working? That means team size. and then who is the client for the project here, and the duration of that project over here. We can specify the duration of the project, and what is the start date and what is the end date of the project. What is the budgeted cost? What is the cost of that project? Whether the project has been started or not. I would like to capture all this information. Okay. Now let's begin writing that class here. Define the class and then start writing the members. Now I'm creating an Apex class. Project details. I'm defining the members. Public integer, project code, and the team size. Public string, project title, and the client name and the email ID. Public date, start date, end date of the project. Public decimal, budget cost. Public boolean, is in progress. Is in progress. Now, a blind thumb rule and a blind formula, okay, which I'm giving to you. Whenever, if any of the variable name, any of the function name is starting with is, then that will be of type simply boolean. It's a fundamental principle. Wherever you go, any programming, okay. If that variable name or if the function name or method name is starting with is, that means it's a straightforward boolean type. Okay. Now, if this kind of some thumb rules are available, you should be able to remember. Done? Comfortable preparing these classes? Okay. Still any questions? Feeling comfortable upon preparing the class and defining the members, access specifiers, everything? Okay. Now, the next one is the object creation. Then how to create the object of this class in order to access this class members, we'll see in the next session. Okay. In the next session, we'll see how to create the object of these classes and how can we access these members and how to assign the values for these members. We'll see practically over here with the help of object. Okay. Now, next session will be on Monday. Okay. Saturday, Sunday don't have the session. Next session will be on Monday morning again. Okay. But go through the information whatever we have discussed.